Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Roll With It. So I realized it's been a while since I did the last one. I've been getting set up in a new apartment, new Wi-Fi. So yeah, it's taking a little while. But I wanted to approach a topic today, which I think is very important, relevant to an RPG, and just that would be naming things. I call this one the name game. To start, I just wanted to provide you guys a couple resources, some ideas. There's lots of ways to name things. You can go with the culturally correct. If you know what the culture will be like in your world or in somebody else's world, there's that option. There's the high fantasy, which doesn't really matter. You just kind of throw stuff together and it sounds good. There's traditional, which is just kind of taking a name and tweaking it a little bit. And I'm going to kind of go through each of these. The first one is culturally correct. A lot of the time, you'll see posts for games like somebody wants to run a Viking game, or somebody wants to run a like Greece, Rome. So sometimes it's hard to kind of come up with names for that. One of the best resources I found to use is a website called 2000 Names, and I'll put this in the description below. But 2000 Names is essentially you can click on a culture, and it'll give you the option of male or female, and it'll tell you a bunch of different names in that culture when it existed. These names can they all have meanings as well. So if you're kind of into having a deeper meaning to your character's name, it kind of helps with that too. The second option was high fantasy. A lot of the times you can kind of just toss stuff together and it sounds good. But one of the ones I like to use is a website on Donjon, donjon.bsh, I believe it is. And Donjon has random creators. Like it throws random names onto random descriptions and random abilities and stuff. And this has been great for on the fly NPCs for me for running online games. And I'll provide this in the description below as well. You can also Google fantasy name generators. There's one called fantasynamegenerator.com, which has thousands of options for different things. Again, I'll include it in the description below. And just naming has to be something that you need to consider. It has to be something that you take into account, that you really think about, because nobody wants to try and pronounce a name, which is impossible. Again, it adds to the flavor of a game if your name has relevance to the storyline itself. If it has relevance to the world, to the culture, if you can tie it back into something. A name is your character. It is what your character makes it. On a side note, after kind of naming people, naming NPCs, naming just individuals, there's also naming factions. One of the best things I found for naming factions, for giving my factions cool, unique names, because I feel like so often you see like, oh, the Dark Assassins, or oh, the Silent Eye, or something, is taking a word. So get a concept, take your faction, give it a concept. Let's go with like an Assassin's Guild. Sure, we'll go with that as we were doing before. Take the word assassin and go to a website, to a thesaurus website. I prefer powerthesaurus.com, but you take that word and you put it in there and you just kind of scroll, and you'll find some really interesting words to go along with that. One of the favorite ones I found for me was I was trying to find something for like Inquisitor, something similar to Inquisitor. So I kind of did a Revelation, Revelator, Inquisitor, and I came up with the word Elucidator, which I've never heard used before in any games. And it just kind of stood out to me. It was really cool. So using thesauruses will help you to expand not only your database, your not database, your words that you can access. It'll also give you the ability to make your factions unique and ultimately just really cool and memorable. So a few things about naming things that you need to take into account is that when you're naming people, places, organizations, cities, whatever, names can get really confusing if you throw too many at your players. One of the things I like to do is I like to write out exactly what kind of NPCs I'm going to introduce in there that have relevance before I go into a game. For example, there's a game I'm going to be running tonight where a certain someone is going to show up who I've fleshed out a lot in the world. I've done certain individuals who, if they make perception checks or investigation checks, they'll find them they can talk to. And it's very, very simple. You do three things. You choose you choose your character, you give them a name, and then you choose three unique things about them and one motivation. So why do this? Because I feel like it's very easy when you're running a game and people just talk to somebody random to just throw out a name and they completely forget about that person. And you're like, oh man, I want to come back to this person. A good example of this is in the third session of my Dread Machinations mini campaign. I was running the game and I wanted to introduce a character whose name was Yavr Yalexel from the old Tumultier game, from the past. I wanted to have him introduced into the game, but I couldn't remember his name for the life of me, and it was killing me. And I remember there was awkward silences because I was trying to remember his name. So going into that prepared with the names you want to use and the people you want to introduce will help you make the story flow better. Additionally, when naming people or places, remember that a person's name and a place's name is only as memorable as you make it. When I say that, I mean, yeah, you could have them run into some random tavern on the side of the road and they'll go in there and something significant will happen, but then they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that one place later on in the campaign. Yeah, what you want to do is you want to have those places be unique in their own way, whatever that is. Just make it something memorable for your players so that the name is memorable, so that the name will be remembered. So that if you bring it up later, your players will be more apt to remember and understand the place you're talking about, if that makes sense. One last point that I wanted to make is that names can be, like I said, confusing. And if you're going to give a name to a rank or a role or some sort of station of power or something, make sure that it's a word that people will understand the meaning and the gist of. Make that word mean something through the person's actions, not through what the word is. For example, I could easily call a rank in my organization an elucidator, but that doesn't mean anything until they see what that person does in action. So you need to give cool and important names to things that are going to be cool and important. If a city isn't going to be important, don't give it some crazy cool name that you thought of. Give that one something simple. They're not going to come back here. It's not going to be that important. Save your name, Aetherianus, for something cool. I don't know. That was just a name on the spot, whatever. But again, this is just tips and tricks for role-playing and for just being a better role player and a better DM. I'm Tyler Hurst from Roll With It, and I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope to start doing more of these again in the future.